Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So, this episode I'm calling After Willow Decision, Biden's Lies and Fundamental Uncaring on Climate Must Be Challenged in 2024 Primary. So, as you may know, Biden has approved the Willow Project, which is a Conoco-Phillips drilling project in the Arctic. Supposedly, uh, it's going to, well, not supposedly, if it is built, it will produce 287 million tons of carbon dioxide, the equivalent of annual emissions from 76 coal plants, so plants that are generally not being built anymore because of their emissions. And I believe the equivalent is of having 2 million more cars on the road every year. So, obviously, internal combustion cars. And this is something that Biden said in his campaign, that he wouldn't approve any new projects on federal land, new oil, new fossil fuel projects. This is something that goes against what the Secretary General of the United Nations said in terms of that no new fossil fuel projects should be built, and that therefore we should be scaling down our fossil fuel extraction activities. And the United States is one of the top extractive nations, along with Saudi Arabia, Russia, Australia to some degree, and a few other nations, many of them in the Middle East. And so this is something that also, I mean, Germany too has its own coal industry, not oil, and there are struggles around the expansion of the coal industry in or the coal pits in Germany. But anyway, the United States has a unique role in because we're the historically by far the largest emitter, currently not annually, but over the history of carbon emissions since the Industrial Revolution. We are the number one emitter per capita. We are close to the number one emitter, and we are the second largest emitter as a country. We need to be leading in this area, and this is something that Joe Biden cannot be trusted, and has shown that he cannot be trusted in being a leader of that country that is the leader, and that could basically lead the process of dismantling the fossil fuel industry, which must happen at a rapid rate. And he doesn't have the internal strength to do that. He doesn't have the honesty to do that. The commitment to values, to human values, to commitment to the future of his grandchildren, and other people's children and grandchildren, and so he has failed in this, and even though Biden has provided through the IRA, maybe also through the infrastructure bill as well that preceded the Inflation Reduction Act, some meager provisions that are climate related, he cannot at the same time, if he's to be anywhere close to how he represented himself in the primaries. Now, he was not as impressive. He did not convince me, certainly, of that he was honest during the primaries, and he his performance in debates was slippery at best. Bernie Sanders did him many favors by not confronting him in those debates. And anyway, so we need a principled, strong candidate in the primaries to challenge by either Biden or some Biden-like centrist candidate. If Biden decides not to run, it's not clear whether he is going to run or not. We need, whether he runs or not, we need a climate champion, a Green New Deal champion in the 2024 presidential race. And I there are people who dismiss this. They say it's, it's kind of either that person will not win, that it's there, the way that the commentators who pretend to be realistic, or who are in some sense often realistic, talk about this. They tend to exclude people like, for instance, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from consideration. She needs to be top of the list as far as I'm concerned. She has not shown indications that she wants to run, and I am sorry that she doesn't. I don't. She needs to decide that herself. But it's disappointing. I am hopeful that she would start a campaign. I have, in previous episodes, talked about what kind of campaign she should run. I think, in terms of a movement campaign, a campaign based on real goals, very distinct policy goals that she would be firm on, and that she would be detailed on, that she could be detailed on, because she is very focused, and she can be very focused and very detail oriented, and she's extremely bright, and can and also has a very good political skills, sometimes great political skills, depending on where she's at, and I think, personally, I think she has not come to terms with how good she is in the sense of, as a politician, that she hasn't yet fully developed her own I don't know, greatness is maybe it sounds very, I'm being overly praising of her, and who knows, she could also fail in becoming who she might be, and also she may not want to be the person, so she may be someone who resents the pressure that people like me or other people might put on her to be a leader, a political leader. But I think we need leaders in this area, and so running for president is the top way to declare oneself a leader, and also to develop leadership skills. Not all of the leadership skills, not every leadership skill that one should have, but it is in the area of politicians, it is one place where one can show one's potential as a leader. Now, obviously, she would be, if she won, she would be the youngest president that ever, occupied that office. She would be just eligible to be, in terms of her age, to be president if she were to win. And there are obviously hurdles beyond her age. She is a person who is hated by many on the right. She would be a target of many trolls and right-wing politicians who are also almost the same thing as trolls. She has been physically the target of attacks of various kinds. So I understand her hesitation. She, in the January 6th events of January 6th, so forth and so on, she was physically very vulnerable, and feels, I think, strongly about, this is just my observation, but feels, or my supposition, based on, whatever assumptions, of putting myself in her shoes in a way as much as I can, that she would be looking for protection from people like Joe Biden, or like Nancy Pelosi before, or anyway, from her party, protection by sort of remaining within, so to speak, within the herd as much as she can, rather than breaking out of the herd and saying, look, I'm going to run for president. We need to put our house in order. I am gonna gonna attempt to run for president to put our house in order. Okay, and so putting our house in order, in my view, means uh, stopping projects like Willow and any other new fossil fuel extraction projects, and going full bore toward reducing emissions, creating a Green New Deal plan that is inclusive enough, popular enough, big enough. I believe the Green New Deal, upon its announcement, was 80% had 80% popularity, and now has been chiseled away by various trolling activities and by various. But she would need to. I think that would need to be the core of her campaign, and it would need to be very inclusive. There are aspects of her, the way she talks and so forth and so on that are more, let's say, confined and narrow to her district, in the sense of, or to basically a very highly diverse. She has one of the most diverse districts in the country, and she would need to create a universalistic message that embraced both the immigrant or new American population that is in New York 14, but also the people who have been here longer in various forms, either, of all different ethnicities, different races, so forth and so on, but create an inclusive vision. She has that potential to do that, but there are times in which she uses language that is more of an insider language for let's say, a left community, or a community that is used to talking in code about various things that are being anti-racist, homophobic, so forth and so on, which are all things that she could incorporate into her inclusive vision. But there are various kind of code ways to talk about her potential vision and what she could do, that are more bring people together, so forth and so on. And she has that potential, and I see that in her, and in her devotion to her job, and so forth and so on, and her. But anyway, so enough about her per se. But also, Marianne Williamson is also running. She could potentially be, if AOC does not run for whatever reason, Williamson could at least create. I think Williamson should center her campaign also on a Green New Deal vision, and at least try to get, if Williamson, in all probability, would not win. AOC has the potential to win, I think. But whether against Biden or against the field of other contenders. But Williamson could potentially be someone who could challenge Biden to, or some other centrist field, to reckon with the real issues of climate change, of emissions, the emissions that come from American activities in the world and in the United States, and how we can cut those things. And so anyway, so this simply requires, so the moral, ethical turpitude, you could say, of Biden, which is less bad than, so we're dealing with a choice in American politics, and I'm going to probably do a video that teases this out more, where you have a confrontation between two parties in terms of their establishments, their top officials or top candidates, where you have one party that talks is a good game but fails at that game 90% of the time, and then you have another party that talks a bad game and succeeds in that about 30 or 40% of the time. and are committed to what in essence are a world of a destructive vision, a vision of based on hate, based on perversity, on perverting common morality, not just the morality of the last 40, 50 years in the United States, the morality of a diverse, anti-racist society, that is our ideal. We haven't obviously achieved that, but our ideal, but is also committed to, or it's also a perversion of the Christian morality, which originates in the teachings of Jesus Christ from the Middle Ages and the ancient times in the Middle Ages and so forth and so on, from what we understand about the historical person that was Jesus Christ. So anyway, that is now not represented by a vast swath of the evangelical, church, evangelical churches. I'm not saying not the Lutheran evangelical church, but the basically evangelical Protestant fundamentalists, we call them churches, which they're not based on the fundamentals of Christian religion, or on certainly this vision or what the morality and ethics of as propounded by the historical figure Jesus Christ. But anyway, they are people who claim that, but enact the opposite, or a vision that undermines good people. Okay, that undermines and that sees itself in opposition to people who are generally good and trying to do good things. So what we have, though, in our Democratic Party are the leaders who are creating a husk of a veneer of being good people, but are not in general good people, and that's frustrating, maddening. It's hard to deal with. It is hard for the progressives in that party, the party who want to be good people and are trying to be good people, to deal with a leadership that is creating this veneer of being good, but not in the end not doing good. Okay, not in action doing good. And so here we have an example of, in the Willow Project, of Biden not doing good. Okay, and that needs to be repeated and over again by everybody who believes that we need to act on climate, that we can act on climate, that we can rescue the human species from its own self-immolation, self-suffocation via fossil fuel use. So anyway, and also other forms of environmental degradation that we've engaged in. So anyway, this is now, we need a movement also that is holding all of these politicians to account. And our movement is very, very divided, as I've talked about in recent episodes, or is very fragmented. And the Green New Deal portion of it has weakened itself. The Sunrise Movement, which is one of the main political action groups, has seemed to have sort of has spent the last year and a half or so being diffuse and not really being a strong advocate for the Green New Deal idea. Maybe this was inevitable. Their Green New Deal, as proposed, was vague and so forth, so on, and I think the Green New Deal requires a very detailed plan, down even to some of the engineering details of what needs to happen. And engineering, it is a grand engineering project in a way, but the great vision of it is understandable by lay people. That needs to be linked with also. It needs to be a combination effort of specialists and people who know things about various things that need to happen to save energy, to to reduce emissions, so forth, so on, and people animated by a vision, by an overall understanding of how we need to become, as I've said in certain episodes, a circular economy, a society that is not about a once through use of energy and materials, but that that it becomes circular, that we don't throw things away, that there's no more away, in the sense that we always understand it as a cycle. Okay, so, and this is a positive goal. This is not we must stop doing something, but this is something we must build. So this is a positive, this is an injunction, okay, rather than a prohibition. So literally, we need to enjoin people. We need to say this, thou shalt, and this say so. Sorry to use the biblical sounding language, but so we need to create this vision, and so having this vision makes it easier, I think, to organize and sustain a movement over a longer time that is able to articulate why it's so disastrously wrong that Biden does things like the Willow decision, and then but also that creates a pathway for politicians to propose legislation and act and have the government act in ways that support our building together this circular economy. So anyway, I'll stop here, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts about some of these ideas in the comments. Please like the video if you were enjoying it or if got something out of it. And also, please subscribe to Politics 2100 to get more notice of other videos. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.